When we talk about desire, attraction, and intimacy, one of the most misunderstood realities between men and women is the way women communicate what they truly want. So often, men expect clarity in black and white language, something straightforward, something obvious, a statement like, "I want this." But in truth, most women don't operate that way when it comes to matters of intimacy. They don't always come out and say it directly. Instead, they hint, they signal, they create an atmosphere with their words, their tone, and their presence. And if you don't understand this, you will miss the deeper meaning of what she's telling you. It's not that women are afraid to speak their minds. In fact, many women are bold, powerful, and expressive in so many areas of life. But intimacy, vulnerability, the act of inviting someone into her private space, this isn't just about words. It's about trust, it's about safety, and it's about whether she feels that you can truly understand her without her having to draw a map for you. When she wants to take that step, she rarely announces it like a public declaration. Instead, she places clues in the conversation, clues that invite you to read between the lines, to pay attention, to listen beyond the surface. Think about it this way. Human beings, at their core, are not just logical creatures. We are deeply emotional, and our communication reflects that. Women, in particular, often weave their emotions into their language. What she says might sound casual, but what she means is layered. When she leans in during a conversation, when she lowers her tone, when she asks questions that don't need answers but instead create closeness, she's signaling. She's saying, "I'm opening the door. Do you notice?" And here's where most men fail, not because they're unworthy, but because they're distracted. Too many are focused on the literal words. They want directness. They want her to say, "Come home with me tonight." But if you've lived long enough, you know that life doesn't always hand you what you want in a direct package. Sometimes, the most valuable things are hidden, wrapped in layers, waiting for someone patient enough and attentive enough to see them. A woman who wants to sleep with you is not going to hold up a sign or spell it out like a neon light. Instead, she will say things that on the surface look ordinary, but in reality carry a different weight. She may say, "It's late. You don't have to go yet." She may say, "I feel so comfortable when you're around." She may say, "Why don't you come in for a little while?" To the untrained ear, these are casual remarks, but to the man who is paying attention, who understands the psychology of attraction, these are invitations disguised as small talk. And why does she do it this way? Because intimacy, for a woman, is not just physical. It is emotional, it is spiritual. It is tied to the way she feels about herself in your presence. She wants to know that you see her, not just her body. She wants to know that you can pick up on her signals without her having to sacrifice her dignity or expose herself to rejection in the most vulnerable way possible. Her hints are a test, but not in a manipulative sense. They are a way of asking, "Do you understand me? Do you really listen?" If you think about history, literature, even philosophy, you'll find this same theme. The most profound truths are rarely spoken outright. They are whispered. They are suggested. They are hidden in metaphor, waiting for those who have the wisdom to uncover them. A woman's signals work in the same way. They're subtle, they're nuanced, and they demand attention. And when you pay attention, when you read beyond the literal, you not only understand her better, you earn her trust. Now, let me be clear, this does not mean you assume, or that you take her silence as consent. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when a woman is ready, she will speak. But her speaking will come in hints, in subtle cues, in carefully chosen words that are meant to lead you to the door without having to shove you through it. Your responsibility is not to jump to conclusions, but to be present enough to notice when her hints align with her comfort, her body language, and her energy. This requires patience. It requires maturity. And most of all, it requires humility. The humility to accept that intimacy is not a prize you take, but an invitation you're given. And that invitation is rarely wrapped in bold letters. It comes softly, sometimes even shyly, like a secret she's entrusting you with. The man who ignores hints and waits only for direct statements will always think women are confusing. But the man who learns to listen, to observe, to connect not only with her words but with the meaning behind her words, will discover that she is not confusing at all. She is clear. Her clarity is just coded in a language that requires attention. So the next time you're with a woman and you sense that shift, the softness in her tone, the way she lingers on certain words, the way she opens a door that doesn't need to be opened, don't dismiss it as nothing. Don't rush past it. Notice it. Respect it. Understand it for what it is. Her way of telling you that she's ready to let you in, not just into her home, but into her deeper self. And if you walk away with one truth today, let it be this: when a woman wants you, she doesn't need to say it outright. She will always tell you, but she will tell you in hints. Your job is to listen closely enough to hear what she's really saying. Closing reflection. Pay attention. Because in the spaces between her words lies the truth she wants you to see. If you can hear what she doesn't say, you'll never miss what she does. If there's one truth about intimacy that must never be overlooked, it is this: it begins and ends with choice. Too often, we talk about attraction as if it's a chase, as if one person must hunt and the other must surrender. But in reality, true intimacy doesn't work like that. It's not about conquest, it's about permission. And permission is born out of choice. When a woman chooses to be with you, it's not because you convinced her, tricked her, or wore down her resistance. It's because something about you made her feel safe enough to say yes. That yes, however subtle or quiet, is her greatest signal. And if you miss this truth, you miss the entire foundation of healthy intimacy. We live in a world where men are often encouraged to make the first move, to take control, to initiate. There is nothing wrong with showing confidence. There is nothing wrong with expressing interest. But understand this clearly: the ultimate decision is not yours. You can only invite, she must choose. And when she chooses, she will let you know, not always in grand gestures, but in small words and actions that communicate: I am ready. I am opening the door. And here's why this matters. A woman's body, her time, her vulnerability, these are not things to be demanded. They are things to be given. And she does not give lightly. She gives when she feels respected, when she feels valued, when she feels that her choice will be honored. Think about that for a moment. Isn't it true that when you are respected, when your choices matter, you feel stronger? You feel freer. That's exactly how a woman feels when she decides to be intimate. It's not weakness. It's power, her power. So when she says something as simple as, I don't mind if you stay a little longer, or why don't you come over after work, what she's actually saying isn't just an invitation to her space. It's an invitation into her trust. She's giving you permission, and that permission is sacred. It's not a game. It's not manipulation. It's her way of exercising choice in a world that too often tries to take choice away from her. Now, many men make the mistake of confusing choice with playing hard to get. They think a woman who doesn't say yes immediately is simply being coy, as if it's a performance. But that is not what's happening. What's really happening is discernment. A woman evaluates not only what you say, but how you make her feel. She's watching whether you respect boundaries, whether you listen, whether you can handle patience. Because if you cannot respect her choice before intimacy, you will not respect it after. There is a kind of psychological depth here that many overlook. Desire, at its core, is not just physical, it's about alignment. A woman's choice to be intimate is her way of aligning her inner world with her outer actions. She cannot separate the two. If her heart says no but her words say yes, she feels broken. If her mind says yes but her spirit feels unsafe, she feels regret. That is why the true yes, the one you must wait for, comes when everything inside her says, I choose this. And when she speaks from that place, you will know it. And here's where philosophy ties in. Free will is the essence of human dignity. Without choice, there is no love, no connection, no intimacy that holds meaning. Forced affection is not affection, it's violation. But chosen intimacy, where a woman decides for herself to share her body, her time, and her energy, that is one of the highest expressions of freedom. It's a gift. And a gift cannot be taken, it must be given. The man who understands this never rushes. He never pressures. He never interprets hesitation as rejection of himself, but as respect for her process. Because he knows that when the yes comes, when she chooses freely, it carries far more weight than any yes that was coerced. It's not just agreement, it's alignment, it's authenticity. And when you experience intimacy rooted in choice, it feels different. It feels real. So the question is not, how do I get her to say yes? The real question is, am I the kind of man she would want to say yes to? That shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of trying to control her response, you begin to control your own character. You become attentive, patient, grounded. You learn to create safety, not just excitement. You cultivate respect, not just attraction. And in doing so, you become someone worthy of her choice. At the end of the day, choice is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. If a woman wants to sleep with you, it's because she has weighed her options, examined her feelings, and decided that you are the man who deserves access to that part of her life. That choice is her power. And when you honor that power, when you treat her yes as something profound and not casual, you elevate intimacy from something transactional to something transformational. So the next time you find yourself wondering whether she wants to take that step, stop thinking in terms of strategies and tricks. Ask yourself, is she choosing? Is she giving permission in her own words, her own way? And are you humble enough to accept that the power has always been hers, not yours? Because real intimacy is not stolen, it is not pressured, it is not persuaded. Real intimacy is chosen, and chosen freely. And that choice, when it comes, is the clearest sign you'll ever need. Closing reflection. Never forget, intimacy is not something you take. It is something you are given. And when a woman chooses to give, honor her choice, because in that moment, she is not only giving herself to you, she is entrusting you with her freedom. If there is one truth that sits quietly at the center of intimacy, it is this: no woman will open herself physically until she feels safe emotionally. You can be attractive, charming, even persuasive, but if she doesn't feel secure in your presence, her walls will not come down. This is something too many men overlook. They think attraction alone is enough. They believe that chemistry, laughter, or even physical touch will convince her. But the deeper reality is this: without emotional safety, there is no intimacy worth having. Think about what intimacy really means for a woman. It is not just physical closeness. It is vulnerability. It is allowing someone into her private world. It is lowering the guard she has built against judgment, betrayal, or harm. That act is not small. It is monumental. And so she must first answer one question within herself: am I safe with him? If the answer is no, nothing else matters. If the answer is yes, the rest unfolds naturally. When a woman begins to feel safe, you will notice it in the smallest ways. She will speak more freely. She will share parts of her story that she doesn't share with everyone. She will laugh without self-consciousness. She will allow silence between you without feeling the need to fill it. These are not trivial signs. They are profound indicators that she is beginning to trust you. And that trust is the bridge to intimacy. Now let's be honest. Safety is not created overnight. It is not manufactured with clever words or temporary gestures. It is built through consistency. It is built by showing her that you mean what you say and that your actions align with your words. Safety is born when she sees that you do not judge her when she's at her most honest, that you respect her boundaries even when they don't serve your immediate desires, and that you treat her not as a conquest but as a human being. There's also a psychological layer here that deserves attention. A woman's mind processes intimacy holistically. For many men, physical attraction can exist apart from emotional connection. But for women, the two are intertwined. Her mind cannot separate her body from her emotions. If she does not feel valued, if she does not feel secure, intimacy feels like a loss rather than a gift. It feels like giving away something rather than sharing something. And when that happens, regret follows. This is why the key is not to chase the moment, but to build the foundation. Emotional safety also means that she must feel seen, not just looked at, not just admired for her appearance, but truly seen. When you listen to her words without rushing to respond, when you notice the details that others overlook, when you remember the things she says and treat them with importance, she begins to feel that you are not only interested in her body, but in her being. That sense of being understood is powerful, and when a woman feels understood, she feels safe. There is also an element of patience here. Too many men view patience as wasted time, but patience is actually the ultimate signal of strength. A man who is patient communicates, I am not here to take, I am here to build. I am not desperate for what you can give me. I am interested in who you are. And that message, unspoken but deeply felt, creates emotional safety faster than any words ever could. And let's not forget, safety is not the absence of danger alone. It is the presence of care. You cannot simply avoid harming her. You must actively show that you want what is best for her. Sometimes that means slowing down. Sometimes it means hearing her hesitation and respecting it. Sometimes it means being willing to walk away if her heart is not ready. That willingness to prioritize her well-being over your desire communicates safety in the strongest possible terms. If you look at philosophy, you'll see that love and trust are always paired. The ancients understood that love without trust collapses into fear, and trust without love dissolves into formality. In the same way, intimacy without emotional safety is empty, but when safety is present, intimacy transforms into connection. It becomes not just two bodies meeting, but two spirits aligning. So when she says things like, "I just feel comfortable around you," or "I can talk to you about anything," don't dismiss those words as casual compliments. Recognize them for what they are: markers of safety. Those are the phrases women use to let you know that you are passing the most important test of all. Not whether you can attract her, but whether you can hold her. And here's the beautiful part. When a woman feels safe, she doesn't have to force herself into intimacy. She doesn't question it. She doesn't doubt it. It happens naturally, seamlessly, as a choice that feels not only right but inevitable. That is the power of emotional safety. It turns what could have been hesitation into certainty, what could have been fear into freedom. So don't chase the physical moment as if it's a prize waiting at the finish line. Build the emotional foundation that makes that moment real, lasting, and meaningful. Because in truth, intimacy is not about how quickly you can arrive, but how deeply you can connect. And connection requires safety first, always. Closing reflection. Remember this. Before she gives you her body, she must trust you with her heart. Build safety, and intimacy will follow. Skip safety, and intimacy will crumble. True strength is not in pursuit. It is in protection. One of the greatest lessons in understanding people, especially in understanding women when it comes to intimacy, is realizing that words alone are not enough. Words are easy. Words can be sweet, persuasive, even deceptive. But actions carry weight. And when it comes to a woman signaling her desire, her words must align with her actions. If they don't, then no matter what she says, she's not ready. Too many men get caught up in what they hear. They cling to a sentence, a suggestion, or a phrase as if it were the ultimate truth. But words, without the grounding of behavior, can create illusions. Maybe she says, "I want you around," but her body language remains closed off. Maybe she says, "I'm comfortable," but she keeps her distance, avoiding true closeness. In those moments, you must look beyond the surface, because the real signal is never just in her speech. It is in the harmony between what she says and what she does. Why is this alignment so critical? Because intimacy is not just verbal. It is experiential. A woman's body and spirit cannot lie in the way words sometimes can. If she says yes but pulls away, if she invites you in but her energy is tense, then that yes is not rooted in choice. It's rooted in conflict. And intimacy built on conflict does not last. It creates regret, confusion, even resentment. This is why the wise man does not rush to believe words that are unsupported. He pays attention to consistency. He watches for alignment. He asks himself, does her language of openness match her behavior of openness? If the two don't line up, then it's not time. And here's the truth. A man who ignores that and pushes forward anyway not only disrespects her, he sabotages his own future with her. Because a woman never forgets how she felt in your presence. If she felt pressured, if she felt you ignored her true signals, she will not trust you again. On the other hand, when her words and actions match, you don't have to wonder. You don't have to decode. You don't have to guess. It becomes unmistakably clear. She will say something like, "Stay a while longer," and her body language will soften in agreement. She'll invite you into her home, and her energy will not be hesitant but welcoming. She'll look at you not just with words but with presence, with eye contact, with the ease that says, "I want this." That alignment is the true green light. There's a psychological depth here too. Human beings are wired to seek congruence. When our words don't match our behavior, we feel tension. It's called cognitive dissonance. And women are no different. If she says she wants intimacy, but her actions resist, she's experiencing that tension. And it means she's not ready yet. You must be patient enough to let her resolve that inner conflict on her own. Because when she resolves it and chooses to act in alignment with her words, her yes will not only be verbal, it will be wholehearted. Think about the philosophy of truth. Great thinkers have always said that truth is unity between what is said and what is lived. In the same way, intimacy must be rooted in truth. If she speaks one thing but lives another, that is not truth. And if you try to build intimacy on that, it will collapse. But when her words and actions are unified, you are standing on something real, and real is always worth waiting for. This is why self-awareness as a man is so important. You must be willing to check yourself. Are you hearing what you want to hear instead of what is actually being communicated? Are you clinging to her words while ignoring her hesitations? Or are you balanced enough to recognize that her actions tell the other half of the story? Because if you are, then you won't fall into the trap of assumption. You'll stay grounded in reality. When her words match her actions, you'll notice the difference. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel confusing. It doesn't leave you with questions. It feels natural, seamless, almost inevitable. That is when you know her consent is not just spoken but embodied. And intimacy, when it is embodied, is far deeper, far more fulfilling than anything that comes from words alone. And here's the beauty of this truth. When you respect the alignment between her words and actions, you also strengthen the bond of trust. She learns that you are not just listening to what she says, but also respecting how she feels. She sees that you don't just want her body, you want her truth. And that makes you different. That makes you rare. And in being rare, you become unforgettable. So don't be the man who rushes into intimacy based only on what he hears. Be the man who listens with his ears and his eyes, who pays attention to her voice and her presence, who respects the unspoken as much as the spoken. Because when you do, you will never miss the moment. You will always know when she is ready. Not because she said it once, but because her entire being said it with her. Closing reflection. Never settle for words without actions. Real intimacy is when her yes is not only on her lips but in her life. Wait for alignment, and you'll never mistake confusion for consent. After everything we've talked about, the hints she gives, the power of choice, the importance of emotional safety, and the alignment between her words and actions, there comes a moment where everything converges. And in that moment, when a woman truly wants to take that step, she will always say something. It might not be what you expect. It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. But it will be unmistakable. It will be her quiet way of saying, I'm ready. Here's the truth: when a woman wants to sleep with you, she doesn't deliver a grand speech. She doesn't make an announcement. Instead, she will say something that on the surface seems ordinary, but in reality carries enormous weight. She may say, why don't you stay over tonight? She may say, you don't have to leave yet. She may say, come inside for a bit. These words sound simple. They sound casual. But they are not casual at all. They are her invitation, her way of letting you know that she has chosen, that she feels safe, that her words and her actions are now fully aligned. This is the moment that separates the man who listens from the man who only hears. Because if you're not paying attention, you might dismiss those words as nothing. You might think she's just being polite, or she's just being friendly. But if you've been attentive, if you've watched her hints, respected her choices, created emotional safety, and waited for her alignment, then you'll recognize those words for what they really are. They are the door opening. They are the final signal. They are the green light. But let's go deeper. Why is it always phrased this way? Why do women choose these seemingly casual, indirect invitations? The answer lies in psychology and dignity. A woman wants to feel that intimacy is something shared, not something declared. She doesn't want to strip the moment of its mystery by saying it outright. Instead, she creates space for you to understand. By saying, why don't you stay? She isn't commanding you. She is inviting you. She is giving you the chance to recognize her readiness without her having to surrender her subtlety. That balance preserves both her freedom and her femininity. There's also a philosophical truth here: intimacy is not meant to be forced into the language of transaction. It's not supposed to sound like a contract. It's supposed to feel organic, natural, flowing. And so, instead of saying, "I want to sleep with you," she couches it in language that feels gentle, seamless, a continuation of the moment you're already sharing. She invites you not just into her home, but into her heart, without shattering the flow of connection. And here's where men often misunderstand. They expect fireworks. They expect certainty in words. But the most meaningful moments in life rarely arrive with fanfare. They arrive quietly, almost humbly. A woman's invitation is no different. It is not meant to be shouted. It is meant to be felt. If you are attuned, you will feel it. If you are impatient, you will miss it. Think about the power of those simple words. Stay a little longer. On the surface, they are ordinary. But beneath them lies a profound choice. She is saying, "I trust you enough to extend this moment." She is saying, "I feel safe enough to let you closer." She is saying, "I am ready." And once you recognize that, you begin to understand that intimacy is never about the phrase itself, but about the meaning behind it. Now, this is where respect comes in. Just because she says those words does not mean you abandon everything else we've spoken about. You must still remain attentive, still remain grounded. You must confirm with her actions, her energy, her presence that her yes is complete. Because even in her invitation, you must remember choice is sacred, consent is sacred, safety is sacred, and alignment is sacred. If all of those are present, then those simple words become the most beautiful signal you could ever hear. And if they are not, then your role is to step back, to wait, to continue building. Because a rushed moment can lead to regret, but a respected moment leads to connection. And that is the difference between intimacy that fades and intimacy that lasts. There's a larger life lesson in this as well. In so many areas of life, the signals we wait for do not come loudly. They do not announce themselves. They whisper. They come disguised as ordinary words, ordinary opportunities, ordinary invitations. But the wise see the extraordinary hidden inside the ordinary. They recognize that sometimes stay a little longer is not just about time. It is about trust, about readiness, about something deeper. So as men, the call is not to chase louder signals. The call is to listen more deeply, to pay attention to the subtleties, to respect the quiet moments where truth reveals itself. Because when a woman wants to take that step, she will always say something. The only question is, will you hear her? Will you understand the weight of those words? Will you honor the invitation she is giving you, not just into her space, but into her trust? And when you do, you will realize that the greatest power is not in getting her to say the words you want to hear, but in being present enough to honor the words she chooses to give. Closing reflection. The words may be simple, but the meaning is profound. When she says stay, hear what she's really telling you. I choose you, I trust you, I'm ready. The question is not whether she will say it. The question is whether you are listening closely enough to understand.